Hey guys, welcome back. This is Bart, and I want to talk today a little bit about a leak. This is the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X3D, a leak that was basically a press pack or a a review guide sent by AMD to review sites, and this got leaked this morning. It's the 24th, and I believe the review embargo for the X3D chips is up on the 28th. No, I'm sorry, 27th. They go on sale on the 28th. Woo! I'll get that straight some way. I had recorded a video earlier, and I decided that even for my standards, I bumbled through it a little bit too much, speaking all over the place and incoherently. That I decided to just give it another shot here. So we're going to try this again. I'm going to try to be a little bit more quick with the points I want to make and see if I can just get through this a little bit quicker to get you guys hopefully up to speed on what this is. Now, first caveat with any sort of leak, right? It's important to take a little bit of grain of salt because what is leaking here and what may actually happen could be different. I do think that this is an accurate leak. It was leaked by HD Technologia. Wow, that's an interesting name. But maybe you go out there if you want to see the original. I think it has a little bit more slides than the video cards website does. But I was familiar with video cards and I came across this and I just want to talk about it. So you can see here, you have this is definitely an AMD slide that they've got here. So these are AMD's numbers that they're quoting, not a reviewer's numbers. These are AMD's numbers. I think that that's an important thing to remember when looking at these. And they're claiming some gains, some things not so much, and then others, pretty high. The big thing with these percentages is if it was only the percentages, this would be very suspect. I don't like it when someone just shows me a percentage. As an example, right? So this is 127%, which means it's 27% faster than the 13900K in this title. And then you go and look at the title, and if you don't have the frame rate, you don't know that, the reason why it was 27% faster is because both system configurations only run that video game at 20 frames per second. So 5 frames per second is 27% higher. Hopefully that kind of gives you the idea. And I feel like I could probably do an entire video on deceptive charts and percentages are the worst. Like people do percentages on things to make their stuff go really high compared to the competition where we're talking almost about a giant nothing burger when it comes to performance. So since this came from AMD and this percentage chart, I would not bank too much on it, except when we scroll down here, they actually do give the frame rate. So that's pretty good, right? That we actually do get like a frame rate. And again, kudos when this is provided. I think this is super important that they actually provide the results, the actual hard numbers, so that way we can see them and kind of validate that this lines up with this, right? And not only that, but we can see ourselves that, okay, this is a sizable difference. This difference makes no difference. Looking at it, so this is the 7950 X3D versus the 13900K. The 13900K right now is $100 and some change, I think, cheaper than what the 7950 X3D is going to debut at. And so what we're trying to figure out here is like, so this comes out at $699. This is $580, $599 at some places. The Micro Center close by, well, I say close, reasonably close in my area, has got them for $529. So it's definitely enough to consider it's a bit less. You could definitely take that money and invest it in something else, maybe towards your video card, which are way overpriced and you need that extra money for them. As an example, if you're building a gaming rig or what have you. But they're both expensive kind of processors. They're both very high-end processors, but this one's a tad bit cheaper than this guy. It's enough to be significant, right? It's $100 difference for that extra $100 that you would pay for this chip when it debuts. You're going to get on these titles with that configuration, all the caveats out of the way, something like a 5.6% increase. In my previous video, I talked about how I thought this was going to be kind of like, it wasn't going to be significantly faster, I didn't think, but it was going to be kind of it was going to out and out be the fastest gaming chip, is what I predicted. I did not think that it would be only 5.6%, generally speaking, or in that 6% range. I thought it would be more like 8 to 12%. I figured it would be enough to basically say, yeah, this is 100% the chart topper, right? This is unless it's a select title that happens to favor the other chip, it's going to overall win, is kind of what I was thinking. Man, 5% starts to get within realm of error, it's kind of like, did you test it on the right day? Was it half a degree cooler in the room? It starts to get into that variance where it's like, and gaming benchmarks, period, have kind of turned into this weird thing where, okay, this game is 8% faster on this CPU, but it's like the game's doing 221 frames per second because we're testing at 1080p to eliminate the video card as a bottleneck as much as possible. And that kind of frame rate it just is crazy. It doesn't really make much sense, so to speak. So what I would say is that's not just as big a percentage as I'd anticipated. I don't know if 5.6%, honestly, is worth $100, because you got to remember, the moment you crank up the resolution, this is all done at 1080p to eliminate the video card. Once you crank up the resolution, 1440p, 4K, you're not going to see a difference. You're going to see a difference in both of these chips and, say, a lower end chip sometimes. Not much difference, honestly, but you may see some. But yeah, this is not really a percentage that I'm looking at going, man, that sounds like I can pay $700 to get my hands on that over, less than $600 to get this chip, right? Scroll down a little bit more and look at this other chart. So they swapped out the video card and put in a 4090. So this was using the 7900 XTX. Jesus Christ. All right, too many X's. The 7950 X3D running the Radeon RX 7900 XTX. Man, I'm going to make a video ranting about naming convention, because this just, apparently if you want to be edgy in gaming, you just add X's to it. That's kind of what we're learning today. Anyway, so they had, here's another X, RTX. So they put the 7950X, paired it up with the 4090, and same titles, 13900K, and they've also included a 7950X non-X3D version, and the 7950 X3D beats on these titles, normalized settings, whatever, 1080p, by 6%, and it beats the 7950X by 16%. Okay, so that's kind of interesting too, is they don't list all the games here. Okay, so that was kind of an interesting one. I wonder why they didn't do that. Maybe they ran out of testing time because of the marketing department was trying to get out the review guides, etc. It's kind of a weird thing though. It looks a little bit suspicious they didn't test the rest of this, because maybe it narrows up this percentage, right? These titles, potentially, okay? And I'm sure someone like Gamers Nexus, and by the way, guys, if you really want to make sure that you get to the nuts and bolts, Gamers Nexus is a great website. They have a website. They're a great YouTube channel. When they test these things, they will test them, in fine detail. So I would definitely reserve final judgments for that on the 27th, would be when they would probably release that, I would guess. However, some of these titles may have brought down this average and they chose not to test them. It could also just be that they ran out of time. It could just be they were like, why are we going to show you more of the same picture over and over again? Hard to say. Really hard to say. There's even a couple of games here where it looks like the 7950X3D even loses to the 7950X. CSGO. Let's see what else. Strange Brigade. Tongue twisted today. So honestly, it's not that much faster. 16% is definitely a measurable difference. Like, it's going by this, you could absolutely definitively say that the X3D version of the 7950X is a faster chip for gaming. Like, that's pretty definitive. 6%, that's a little bit not so much. And again, these are hand-picked titles by AMD. They pick these titles. Off the top of my head, some of these are just, it's definitely a mix of games, so I'll give them that. But, they chose what they wanted to test, right? Some of these are pretty old, obviously, like your CSGOs and stuff. But I don't... Middle-earth Shadow of War, like, I don't know the last time I've seen this game on a review. Maybe I'm just missing it. So, I don't know. I would have to say, and this is a different chart down here, it's just some canned benchmarks like Geekbench and I don't know what Dolphin Bench is. I haven't seen that one. I'm kind of looking at this going, I think that this is truly a review guide. And I'm kind of not impressed. I got to be honest. I kind of thought this was going to be, we were going to see double-digit improvement. Not like, 30, but we're going to see like maybe 10, 11%, uplift. Something that was measurable to the point where, if I was going to spend the money over the top of buying a 13900K, I was going to go, I'm going to get this thing that tops the charts, Another issue is going to be as time goes on. So they're testing on DDR5 6000 memory, which is fine. That's normalized between the two platforms, so it's purely the processors versus each other. The issue with that is Ryzen, the 7000 series, doesn't like anything faster than that, really. Doesn't like it. 13900K, you can run absolutely faster memory. As a matter of fact, I believe it's Galax is out there working on an DDR5 8000 kit right now. And that will absolutely bring up average across multiple titles by something that would absolutely, get close to completely nullifying this slight advantage. So if someone's going just ham, they're going to buy the fastest of the fastest, that could be an option for them. And also, both of these CPUs obviously tweaking. Your 7950 XRD may not be quite as tweakable as the 13900K or overclockable or anything. I mean, I think the boost clock on the 13900K is 5.8 gigahertz, and it's not out of gas there. You can absolutely get some more out of it. Both of these chips are pretty beastly. You're going to need some real cooling. I would say if there was ever a couple of chips that sort of told you what your cooling options are, that it would probably be highly suggested to go ahead and get that 360 millimeter AIO at least. It's probably these two guys. Though if you're building a system that are so systems that are so high end anyway, that's probably something you've taken into consideration. You're probably already budgeting to get a 360 millimeter AIO for these anywho. But that's what I would recommend for sure. You know, maybe optional on some lesser chips. I don't think so on these. I think you really, we're getting to the point where it's like, yeah, you can't really overdo the cooling, you know, for these guys. They are absolutely pretty beastly. i9 13900K is absolutely going to take more power. It's going to suck down all of that electricity juice and turn it into sweet, sweet heat. So you'd better be ready for that. 7950s, they're going to do the same thing. The power budget for this chip actually is less than the 7950X, which is interesting. I think that's because the clock speeds just don't reach as high on the chiplet that has the 3D cache. Just doesn't. All of the high clocks where it's saying like this can go up to 5.7 gigahertz, that's going to be done on the chiplet that does not have the 3D V-cache. I suspect if it did, if they were actually able to pull that off, we would have a totally different conversation about who's the top gaming chip. And I think if they could have pulled that off, they would have. I really think that 5 gigahertz, 5.1 gigahertz is going to be about all they can manage with that V-cache. The chips that are connected to that. So again, the V-cache being kind of what the difference is, has that little bar there that kind of indicates where that is, and basically one of the chiplets has it and the other one does not. The one that does not is the one that can clock up to that 5.7 gigahertz, but I doubt seriously they can just get any more than, like I said, around 5 gigahertz, 5.1 gigahertz, I think, on that. Well, it remains to be seen. Manual overclocking isn't really a thing on these chips, but it remains to be seen if you can tweak the PBO settings. That's the power boost overdrive, I think, or whatever it is that Ryzen's come with, and get some more, get some more out of it if you provide some cooling headroom. I'd be really interested to see this chip delidded, like maybe JZ 2 cents or Der Bauer, somebody can go and pop the top off one of these and cool it and see what happens, because with that increased thermal budget, I'd be curious to see what you could pull off, because supposedly, I mean, PBO still works in these things and you can get a little bit more out of them. I know that they got a little bit more out of the 5800 X3Ds back when, but I don't know. I'll be curious to see what you could pull off of these, right? Might be kind of interesting. But I still say that the 13900K is probably going to be more tweakable because you can up the memory to higher frequency RAM, and it will love it, and it will use it and take advantage of it. And I'm thinking, unless something happens, that can erase this difference. And I really think the 7950 XRD is probably going to have to get released, and they're probably going to have to cut prices pretty quickly. I don't think they can leave it at the $700 mark because of the way it competes against the 13900K for very long. I don't think that's the case unless these numbers are extremely conservative, and actually does a lot better in games and in different titles. But if that was the case, I'm left with the question, why did AMD pick these titles? They could have picked any titles they wanted. So, I don't know, pretty interesting. A little bit, it looks a little bit like they aren't going to quite be able to pull away. So, the 13900K is hanging in there strong. And I want to stress again, I still believe the chip to look out for, if you're building nothing more than a top-notch gaming rig, I believe the chip to look out for is the one that comes out in April. It's the 7800 X3D. It will only have the chiplet with the cache on it. This like that. It'll just be one. And I think the reason why it's not being released alongside the 7900 and 7950 X3D is because I think it's going to end up being actually a little bit faster in gaming. And the reason for that is because it doesn't have to split its power budget between two of the chiplets. I think that it's the rumor mill has got that its Vcache is actually a tiny bit faster than these chips. I don't know why that would be, but that's just something that's coming down rumor mill. And it's going to be $449, which is a more reasonable price, I think, as well. So if you're just building a gaming machine, I think that's a chip to look out for. And if you go up to the high end here, 13900K doesn't make a bad case for itself. I really don't think you're going wrong. And I think all of the differences here, the moment you turn it up to 4K, for example, which you would probably buy a 4K screen if you're buying a RTX 4090, I think pretty much is eliminated. Like that all kind of goes away. So, yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. We'll see what happens on the 27th when we get some real reviews. And I appreciate you guys for watching. Take care.